Okay, these are the part 2 for interactions between organisms. We're going to talk about the 3 main ways that organisms interact. Okay, and the first way that they interact is through competition. And competition is the struggle between organisms to survive as they attempt to use the same limited resource. We talked about limiting factors a few weeks ago. Some of those limited resources would be food, water, and also space. Okay. Now, 2 species cannot occupy the same niche due to competition. Okay, so 2 species cannot occupy the same niche due to competition. If you look back at this diagram, you have 3 types of warblers that are all eating the same food source. They're all in the same location in that same tree, but they found their own niche. And that this warbler only eats at the top of the tree, the bay-breasted warbler only eats in the middle of the tree, and the yellow-rumped warbler only eats at the bottom of the tree. So they all have their own niche. If all 3 of these birds were eating in the same spot at the bottom of the tree, then they would have a problem. They would have to go through competition. They'd be fighting over space. They'd be also fighting over food, and some of them would not be able to survive. So being able to have their own niche helps them be able to survive better. The next type of interaction is predation. And predation is the interaction in which one organism kills another for food. One organism kills another for food. An example would be like a tiger shark. Okay, a tiger shark would be a great example of a predator. And the predator, or the organism that does the killing, is the predator. Okay, so the organism that does the killing is called the predator. Oops. The organism that does the killing is called the predator. We'll get it together here. And the organism that is killed is called the prey, P-R-E-Y. Okay, an example of that might be like a mouse. Okay, so if a predator was a python, then its prey would be the mouse, and it would be able to eat that mouse and kill it as its source of food. Okay, so we have talked about 2 types of main interactions so far. The first one was competition. The second one was predation. The third one will be symbiosis. But before we get to that, we need to talk about how predation affects population size. And this, again, reverts back to what we talked about a few weeks ago when we were studying population. So when the death rate exceeds the birth rate, we know that the population size will decrease. If there are many predators, then the result is often a decrease in the size of the population of the prey. There's too many predators, it just eats and eats and eats like it's going to the buffet, and before you know it, you don't have as many prey as you had. So the decrease in the number of prey results in less food for the predator. And because you don't have as much food, then the predator population then starts to decrease. Without an adequate food supply. Okay, the next type of interaction is symbiosis. There are 3 types of symbiotic relationships. And then symbiosis, this is a close relationship where at least one of the species in these relationships are benefiting. Okay, so there's 3 types of symbiotic relationships. You have mutualism, commensalism, and also parasitism. Okay, the first type of symbiotic relationship we're going to discuss more about is mutualism. Okay, now this is a relationship in which both species are benefiting. So both species benefits. Okay, so in which both species benefit. So when you do a gesture, when we do partner teaching, this one's going to be a double pat on the back. Okay, so we're going to say pat on the back. Okay, because it's like if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If you do me a favor, I'll do you a favor. And so that's what that double pat on the back will symbolize for mutualism. Here's an example. The relationship between the saguaro cactus and the long-eared bats. So the bats benefit because the cactus's flowers provide them with food. And the cactus benefits because its pollen is then spread to another plant on the bat's nose. Okay, so when that bat goes to feed out of that flower, it's getting down into the flower, it's eating the pollen, and it gets some of it on its nose. So when it goes and flies to another cactus flower, and it gets down into the flower, then it's rubbing the pollen it had on its nose and with that other flower, and it's pollinating that cactus. So the cactus benefits because it's getting pollinated, and the bat's benefiting because it's getting food. That's mutualism, where both benefit. Okay, the next symbiotic relationship is called commensalism. And this is the all about me relationship. Okay, so commensalism. Okay, this is a relationship in which one species benefits and the other species is neither helped nor harmed, so it's unaffected. So, for example, the red-tailed hawk's interaction with a cactus. So, the hawks benefit by having a place to build their nest. And the cactus is not affected by the hawks. It doesn't matter to the cactus if it's there or not. It's not harming it, it's not helping it, but the hawks benefit because it has a place to build its nest. But commensalism is not very common in nature. So it's hard to see examples of this because it's not very common, but you do need to know about it because it does occur, just not as much as mutualism or the third type of symbiotic relationship, which is parasitism. Now, our gesture for commensalism when we partner teach will be point to self, okay, because this is all about me. It's all about you. What's in it for you? Because only one species in this relationship is benefited. Okay. The last relationship type is parasitism. Okay, so parasitism. This relationship involves one organism living in or on another organism and then harming it. Okay, so our gesture for this is I want you to draw an arm, best you can draw. That's not a very good arm, but it doesn't matter because you're just going to see that you're going to grab your one arm, and because it's a parasite living on you, and that's going to be your gesture for parasitism. Okay, the organism that this relationship benefits is called the parasite. And the organism that it lives in or on is called the host. Like when you host a dinner party, you might say, oh, come on in. Can I take your jacket? Would you like something to eat? That's a host. And essentially, you're inviting that in for 3 square meals a day and then some, even if you didn't really want that parasite. That's what's happening. So the host is generally bigger than the parasite. And some common parasites include probably things that you already knew about even before science class, like ticks, okay, fleas, and leeches. Okay. So what's the difference between a predator and a parasite? Well, unlike a predator, a parasite does not kill the host it feeds on. Okay, because if the host dies, then the parasite loses its source of food. Okay. Because if the host dies, then the parasite loses its source of food. So that would be a pretty bad decision for the parasite if it tried to kill its host. Okay, so that's all of our notes for the second part. There's also the symbiosis wrap that I hope that you listen to. That's on mrswilliard.com. So that way you can click on that and watch it through YouTube at your home. So go to mrswilliard.com and watch the symbiosis wrap. If you need any of this repeated, please feel free to rewind.